Okay, welcome everyone to the September NSO membership meeting. We have a outstanding guest tonight to provide us a presentation. And with that, we'll just jump into it. And Taylor, I'll let you do the introduction.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for being here tonight. First and foremost, if you guys could please thank Alex for being here. It's a very special day for her. So right now, if you guys don't know, it's about 10 p.m. in Orlando, Florida, and Alex's birthday is today. So she thought, what better way to spend her birthday than with soccer referees in Washington State? So, so
Exactly.
yeah, so thank you, Alex, for being here. For those of you who might not know Alex, she is a PRO official and a FIFA official. And I think you did a pretty fancy game last year. What game did you do last year? I think it was a championship.
Yeah, I did the Friendship Cup final.
Yeah. So what better way, especially with girl season going on, to have Alex here? Just a quick reminder to everybody, if you have questions, by all means, you can put them in the chat. I think Alex has more of an interactive presentation for tonight. And then afterwards, we'll open it up for general questions. So without further ado, Alex, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. It is my birthday, but I've been refereeing since I was like 14, so it's in my blood. I love hanging out with other referees. I love soccer, so it was hard to say no when Taylor asked. So here we are. But yeah, so tonight my presentation is on the differences between men's and women's soccer. And how we can take a few slightly different approaches in dealing with males and females. My style of presentation is very interactive, so I'm not sure. I see everyone has their cameras off, so I'm not sure if everyone's making dinner or what's going on, but more than happy for you guys to answer in the chat if you are in a loud space or something like that. But yeah, my preference is that it's more of a conversation, and then that way we can learn from each other. So going forward, I'll ask questions like open-ended questions, and if you could either put your microphone on or type in the chat, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll just stare awkwardly, or Taylor and I will have a conversation, and yeah. But anyways, so I'll share my screen. And I've done this a few times, but I'm still kind of not that great at it, so just bear with me. Okay, so like I said, I thought I'd talk about tonight the differences between the men's and the women's game. So here we go, straight up. So what are some of the differences when it comes to communication? So the way that I kind of lay this out is like, there's one column that has things that are specific to the men's game, things that are specific to the women's game, and then things that have no gender specific like attachment. So it could be used in either gender and it's just standard across the game. So when it comes to communicating, what are some of the differences that you notice between the men's and the women's game?
Alex, I try to talk a lot less in the women's game.
Okay, why is that?
Because sometimes I seem to say the wrong things that make it worse.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, player management is very much about like trial and error, right? I know growing up, there was a lot of situations where I tried saying things to certain people and it did not go well. But I put that in the memory bank and then said, okay, that was not the right thing to say for that, person or that moment. But yeah, cool.
Alex, this is KD.
Hey.
What I noticed difference in between the men's and women's, and this is more at the professional level, maybe not so much at the grassroots level.
Mhm.
And I've seen this in person and on TV, is I notice in the women's game, there is less simulation, less flopping, less exaggeration of minor fouls. I see that a lot more in the men's game.
Yeah, embellishment for sure.
Yeah.
Women will play through. I mean, I think in NWSL alone this year and last year, there were probably 5 or 6 red cards, like serious foul play, like studs to Achilles, and they acted like nothing happened. In the men's game, you know, there'd be at least 5 rolls and maybe 6 more after that. I don't know, but
And it affects, actually, it's in the back of my head when I'm refereeing like a U19 ECNL girls versus a
Mhm.
U19 ECNL boys. It's in the back of my head is, you know, especially in the penalty area. Is he
Mhm.
embellishing? Is he flopping, trying to draw a PK? Where I'm not as concerned about it as much in the women's game, in the girls' game. And so
Okay.
I don't know if
So
that's right or wrong, but it is in the back of my head.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's definitely something that is different between the men's and the women's game. So as far as like communication around that, how might you deal with that specifically in the men's game because it's more prevalent? Like, is there things that you would say to the players to hopefully get them to stop or, you know, try and manage that?
Well, there's nothing preemptive because I don't want to assume they are flopping or going to flop, right? It's
Okay.
just when I see a foul that I think was embellishment, I will say no, no, I don't think that's a foul. Don't try to trick me. I've said that before, on the
Ah,
pitch,
yeah,
right? And so
yeah,
that's
for
one of
sure.
my methods of handling that.
Okay, cool. I like that. I actually said that to the OCB goalkeeper a couple weeks ago. He saw a few videos of him where he likes to pretend he got hit in the face, and he tried doing it to me, and I called him out on it, and his eyes went, "Oh crap." She got me. But yeah, for sure. Cool. Anyone else? All right. Okay. So the women's game, kind of how you know, we mentioned short interactions are better. I hate to break it to you guys, but we all know that women are way ahead of men when it comes to thinking about the next stage in the game. We've already calculated what it is that we're going to do. We know exactly what we did. You don't need to have a long conversation with us about it. But in fairness, we still need to have conversations when they need to happen. So if it's something that you know, is a borderline reckless challenge, we still need to have that conversation with the player. More so, maybe not for that individual, or maybe for that individual, but more so for the perception of everyone else. Like, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. So don't just not talk to women or girls because they don't want to hear it. In some instances, we need to, right? Women need to be heard. This is also very helpful in your personal relationships if you're a guy dating a female. We love being heard. So if we have a gripe, we are very appreciative when the referee listens to us. Even if you choose not to do anything about it, fine. At least you have heard that person and they feel like, okay, I've got that off my chest. I can move on. Right. Sometimes a response can just be like, okay, I heard you. Appreciate that. I'll keep an eye out. Right. I've not taken any action. I may not take any action, but I've said I've heard what you had to say and I'll keep an eye out for it. Right. When and how we interact with women and girls in the game is very important. Right. So private conversations are often, you'll get more out of it than you would with a public admonishment. Men, generally speaking, don't have the same reaction to being publicly admonished as females do. So if it's an instance where you can maybe wait and swing by and have a private conversation later, you may get more out of it than doing it right in the moment. The men's game, like I said, they're more tolerant to verbal discipline. Calling them out publicly, again, they kind of either accept it or do this one, whatever. But they're not as, they don't kind of internalize it and go, okay, you know, we're not going to be friends or I'm coming for you or something like that later on. Men can deal with it a bit better than women can. And again, more public in managing players, right? They accept it, they can get over it and move on quickly. Women hold on to things and we will remember it forever, 3 years from now on this date, okay? Things that are not specific when it comes to communicating with players, not specific to gender, is law book language versus player language. So what I mean by that is remember when you're with referees and we use law book language. So the penalty area, the goal area. That's a reckless challenge, right? Things like that that we understand. That's our language. When you're speaking to players on the field, be mindful that they don't speak the same language that we do, right? So if you had just said, "Hey, yeah, in the box," right? That's something that's very generalized difference between player language and law book language. So just remember when you're having those conversations with people who your audience is and use the language that they understand to help communicate your message. Giving compliments is a really good way to make friends. Again, not gender specific. I use this tactic often because we need more friends we can have out there, the better, right? The easier our job is. So I love giving compliments. My advice to you would be keep it soccer related, right? Especially when it's a male refereeing female or a female refereeing a male, right? When it's the opposite gender. If it's the same gender, you have less kind of, I guess, liability there, right? But you can use very generic things like, oh, that was an amazing shot, or like, wow, what a save, or wow, you just beasted that player, right? Giving compliments is always a great way to make friends. I often find it works really well if you have a difficult matchup. So if you have like a key defender and the number one goal scorer in the league, if you compliment them separately about how they have either beat or stopped the opposition player, you will often make friends with them so that relationship you have with each of them is easier to manage because you know it's going to be a difficult matchup, right? They're going to want to score and they're going to want to defend. But if you separately compliment them, right, so the other one doesn't hear and think you're playing favorites, you can gain a bit of credibility and relationship with them individually. So when you have to discipline them, it's easier to do. Trust and relationship building, again, not gender specific, right? Part of our job as referees is going out there in front of people we've never met and they have to trust us. But that's not given, it's earned, right? So part of what we do, I had a mentor once tell me it was like depositing money into your bank account. Every time you did something that made them trust you, you made a deposit. Small deposit, small deposit, small deposit. So when it came time for a big decision, you had to make a withdrawal, you already had a positive balance to withdraw from. Versus if you had never taken the time to work and interact with these people to build that trust, when you have to make that big deposit for the big decisions, they're not going to trust you and they probably won't believe you. So often, if you have worked, it's happened to me on numerous occasions, right? We all make mistakes. We all see things one way live and then watch it on video, and you're like, that is not what I thought of, I saw. So it's happened before. If you've worked hard to build relationships throughout the game, that when you have to make a big decision, and maybe it's not right, but the players have learned to trust you throughout the game, that when you make it, they trust you enough to go, okay, maybe I could be on your side on this one, right? And then you watch later and go, oh, yeah, I was wrong, right? Okay, we all, we make mistakes, we move on. But part of that is because we took the time to build the relationships in the first place. Honesty is a huge one, right? So be real. If you didn't see something, obviously be careful about when and where you say this, right? But if it's a simple foul at midfield or you're blocked, right, and a player comes up and complains, it is perfectly okay to say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I didn't see it, right? Rather than trying to explain why it wasn't a foul when maybe it was a clear foul, you just missed it. Players can accept that we can't see everything, right? They're gonna be mad maybe in the moment, but it's a matter of, hey, look, I didn't see it. I'll work hard next time to get a better angle. Or that guy ran in front of me, or that girl ran in front of me. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Versus trying to kind of weasel your way out when they know it's a clear foul. They can appreciate honesty and being real.
Yeah, and Alex, just to jump
Yeah.
in there for a second, being on the admin side and listening to all the coaches, that is probably close to one of their number one pet peeve when it comes to officials. Is they're saying they saw something and then they look around and go, there is no, physical way they could see that. So I think that really rings true for not only players, but also technical staff, because as you know, they look at the footage and they go, they're not even looking when that foul occurred. So
Yeah.
that is a huge one, especially at the professional level.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. Like I said, it happened to me in a game a couple weeks ago. A guy ran straight in front of me right as the contact happened. Is it a foul? I have no idea. My AR also has no angle. So I'm just like, look, actually, no, my AR did see it in this case. I just said, look, the angle I had was not good. I'm looking through the back of people. He runs in front of me. My AR said it wasn't a foul. I'm just communicating what he told me. I'm sorry if you disagree, but I'm just telling you what he told me. Like, sorry.
Right,
Right.
right.
And then we moved on with life and it was fine.
Good.
But yeah, thanks, Taylor. It's good to hear the admin side too, because a lot of the times we as referees don't understand that part of it, if we're not involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remain calm, right? Sometimes it's difficult when there is I've worked really hard. I used to swear like a sailor, especially when I presented. I've worked really hard in the past year or two, especially because everything's recorded now, to cut that back. So when there is a storm happening around you, it's always important to remain calm, right? Because when you make irrational decisions, when you look angry, people don't trust those decisions. Um, know your personnel. Sometimes, obviously, if you work in the professional game, it's easier because we have videos, we have stats, we have this and that. But if you work at the youth level or high school level, they're the same players that play in the same teams for a number of years, right? So you can always ask your colleagues about, okay, I have this high school versus this high school. What's their style? Like, who are the problem people? I'm a manager, so I'm always interested in who's going to cause me the most problems, or who do I need to keep an eye on, or who can I be friends with? Those are kind of my three types of people that I look out for. So know their tendencies just so you can be aware, right? Cool. Questions, comments, concerns? All right. So foul tolerance. What is the difference between males and females? When we talk about foul tolerance, we kind of mentioned some of it earlier. KD said there's more simulation in the men's game than in the women's game. I agree with that. What else?
I think the
Okay,
women's
sorry. I just saw there was some stuff in the chat. Sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
No, that's perfect. I think in the women's game, they let you know when they want the foul to be called. In the men's game, there's a lot more theatrics. You can't really differentiate, what's real, what's kind of, has a little extra to it. I think in the women's game, they make it pretty clear when they want that foul.
Yeah. Except for when it's a red card and they're like just cruising along.
Me? No.
Yeah, good.
Hey, Alex, it's Jeremy.
Hey.
I've had situations where in the high school women's game where I've just waited a beat too long to call the foul and then had things kind of blow up for me because they're looking at me like, why aren't you taking care of this, old man? So they're going
We'll
to take care
of it ourselves.
That's right. So
Yeah.
sometimes, especially at the halfway line, especially in the defensive third coming out, just calling the simple stuff quickly. If it looks and smells like a foul in the women's game, call it and just be done quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a trend that you see about what the foul is or the type of foul where that's happened to you?
It's probably like anything pulling or approaching pulling, just being real upper body contact. Let's call that.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Jeremy. Thank you. You'll see it in a moment.
All right. Glad to be of assistance.
Yeah, excellent. But it's good, part of like what is it? Like the first step is recognizing there's a problem. What is the problem, right? So that's good. Cool. And I'm just going back to Mark. I saw you posted something in the chat. Sorry, I missed you before. He said, I don't use the term girls, ladies instead. Men in the men's game doesn't work. I use boys. Okay. So this is something not specific to you, Mark, but I mentor a lot at youth tournaments. And I find this really weird thing. Maybe one of you can answer this question for me because it baffles me. There have been a number of like grown men refereeing that call young boys, like 13, 14, 12 sometimes, gentlemen when they're not behaving gentlemanly at all. And I don't know, it was just like maybe it's a thing in Florida. Is it a thing in Washington? Does that happen a lot? Is
It's
it
a
a guy
southern
thing?
thing. It's a southern thing, Alex. I went to school in Virginia, and everyone,
Okay.
yeah, like expected to act like gentlemen. And when you
Yeah.
misbehave, you are admonished gentlemen. Yeah, I think it's a southern thing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm like, why are you calling these children gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, lads. Cool. Love that.
I've noticed that in the South too. It's almost
Okay.
like saying pay attention to etiquette when you use gentlemen.
Okay.
But as a woman ref, I hear other male refs call men's teams boys,
Mm-hmm.
but I am not comfortable calling the men boys, and if I do, I get really nasty stares sometimes. So
Yeah. So what do you
that's
call them?
players or
Gentlemen?
men or or men. I know, no, not gentlemen because they're not acting like it, but no, but men. But it would not work for me to call the men boys.
Yeah, I'm with you. I call them guys. Hey guys, come on. Guys. Every now and then, if it's, I don't know, if it's a certain situation that calls for it, I might throw out a bro, but it's pretty rare. But guys, I think is pretty safe. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Um, anything else? Foul tolerance, male, female? Okay.
So, Alex, one thing I noticed, and it's more at the younger ages in the boys versus girls, and the girls when the ball is in the air and they're trying to bring it down, they tend to raise their arms like they're praying up to the sky, and it makes for an awkward moment when the ball hits their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that's more prevalent with girls than it is boys at the younger ages, and I don't know why that is, but it just is it a natural position? It just makes for very, I don't know, difficult
Awkward.
to adjudicate.
Yeah, for sure. I would say even at the professional level, the types of fouls that happen in the women's game tend to be more awkward and less clear than in the men's game. You'll see one of them in a clip that I have. But so part of that comes to what Jeremy was talking about before. Women are less tolerant of upper body contact. If I have to spell it out for you, I mean, we're built physically different, right? So we are more protective of our chests than men are. So anything when it comes to women and girls, if there is upper body contact happening, and if you watch any college games, SEC tournament last year, there was a really nice grabbing, and then you'll get this one. They get off me, I'm going to elbow you in the face because you're touching me somewhere I don't want to be touched. So in a women's game, I would say lower your threshold of where you deem upper body contact is a foul. So I would call more upper body fouls in a women's game than I would in a men's game because men are accepting of holding, to an extent, right? A foul is a foul, but they are more accepting of jockeying for position when holding upper body. Women are not. Okay. So be mindful that if you see, the kind of bumping from behind, like, right, the defender is shielding and they're bumping, or grabbing, just call a foul and be done with it. Because when you don't, kind of as Jeremy was saying, is when you're not going to do anything, and then the retaliation happens, right? In the women's game, hip checks, we talk about this at the professional level regularly. There are managers who are men that have not refereed a lot of the women's game in their careers, and they don't know what a hip check is. Us women, we see it and go, clear hip check, right? All day, every day. And they're like, that's not a foul. And all the women are like, yes, that's a foul. So in the women's game, hip checks are more prevalent. So if you are not aware of what they look like, my suggestion would be to go researching and watch some of the women's professional game. I think there's actually one, I may have one clip of one, but essentially it's a charge kind of with like the lower portion right in here. Whereas men tend to use shoulders, right? And it's a clear foul in the women's game. You'll see it every now and then in the men's game, but it's not very prevalent. Kind of as I mentioned before, more awkward fouls. Personal versus business. What I mean by this is that women tend to take things personally and remember them and internalize them and plan their attack. Men can decide that this is business, we're here for a job. All right, I have, there's heavy challenge, I've retaliated, now we've moved on with life, right? Women, heavy challenge, I'm planning my retaliation. It may not come immediately. It may not come in this game. It may be 3 years from now, but I'm planning it and I'm waiting for the opportune moment for it to happen. So just be mindful that a really important part of recognizing when there is going to be possible retaliation in a women's game is the look back. So it's a foul happens, the player usually ends up on the ground and they turn around to go, who was that? Where is this person? So I can make a mental note. So if you see that as a referee, that's your clue to go, okay, I got to deal with this. Like something happened. Maybe it's just a simple foul, but you don't know their history, right? You don't know what the situation is that day. So just be mindful that if you see that happen, this is your tell of like, okay, are you okay? Let her say whatever, yeah, she blah, 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 whatever. Okay, don't worry, I'll go talk to her. And then you can go and have a conversation with her. So in her mind, she goes, okay, that referee is going to protect me. I can safely maybe move on. Or maybe I'm still planning my retaliation. But it's important to make that mental note of the look back. Men will usually do it straight away or like the next play, right? Yeah, so retribution. Again, I already talked about men tend to accept more physical play as far as like upper body contact. Their retribution is usually immediate, if not soon after in the same game. And then once the game is over, they move on with life. You can go have a beer or whatever afterwards and they're okay. Not gender specific. Players expect to be protected. So call fouls, right? When we get into trouble as referees is when we don't call fouls. That's when bad things happen, right? So I think I've only been on one game in my 20-something year career where people were pissed off because the referee was calling too many fouls. And in fairness, he wasn't letting them play and they were willing to play, right? So as soon as he stopped calling fouls, everyone was happy. Not stop calling fouls, but called less trivial fouls. Everyone was happy. So the point I'm trying to make is call more fouls and usually things will be okay. Consistency, right, is always key. I'm sure that's the buzzword that all coaches want to drop on you. Oh, well, be consistent. What does that mean to you, right? Keeping things under control obviously is not gender specific, and managing the game. So understanding, and this comes with time and experience. So don't beat yourself up about it, about managing the game. This is something that is a big point for us at the professional level, is understanding the emotions and the ebbs and flows of the game and how we adjust based on that. That comes with experience, right? So as we kind of talked about earlier, like, yeah, I usually don't talk to people sometimes because I don't know what to say or I say the wrong thing and then I put my foot in my mouth. But it's important to have those moments to know that, okay, that wasn't the right thing to say in that moment, but I'll try it again in a different moment, in a different situation, in a different game. And maybe it works like a charm, right? There was the best example I have of this was when I was like 17. I was refereeing men's games because in Florida, our SRA at the time made us all referee adult men. And my mentor, one of my mentors here in Florida said, when you have a borderline, like orange tackle, but you can tell that the opposition team is going to take this person out if you do not send them off, right? Like you can see the fire in their eyes and they are coming for this person if they stay on the field. So you have to give red in this situation because we're managing this game, right? So he said, you can use this line and it will help you. And I said, okay, what's the line? And he said, I'm doing this to protect you, right? Like I'm doing this for you so they don't come after you. And I was like, okay, cool. I could do that. Sure. And I can't remember the game that I was doing when he told me this situation. So a couple weeks later, I'm doing an over 40 men's game, 17, remind you. And I had blonde hair at the time, 17-year-old, over 40 men's game. Sure enough, orange card tackle happens. This guy, if I could best describe him to give you a visual, looks like he was a member of a biker gang, had like a full-on beard, was probably, I don't know, had a big belly, like he was a big guy. And I'm like, and it was one of those moments where I was like, if I don't send this guy, like they are going to kill him on the field. So sure enough, I sent him off. As we're walking, he's like, rah, 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 the whole time. I'm kind of walking with him off the field to make sure he gets off. And I'm like, after a few sentences of us going back and forth, I'm like, I'm doing this to protect you. And he lit me up. He said, I don't need you to protect me. Who do you think I am? What are you? And I was just like, okay, that was the wrong thing to say in the wrong moment to the wrong person, right? But like a month or two later, I was doing a youth game, like under 16 boys. Similar situation happens, right? Orange card tackle, and I'm like, I got to get rid of this kid. Like they are coming for him. Sent him off. We're walking off. I said, hey, I'm just trying to help you. Like, I want to protect you because they're coming for you. And you could see like the fear in this kid's eyes of like, yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Right. So completely different situations, completely different players and like circumstances. One works and one doesn't. So it's important to try those conversations in multiple situations to know when you can say stuff like that. But again, comes with experience, right? Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Hopefully you all enjoyed that story and can imagine my face as a 17-year-old with my eyeballs about to pop out of my head because I thought this guy was coming for me.
It's important to try things. That's what experience is about.
Exactly. I would never know that I could use it in another situation if I didn't try again. Yep.
On a related thing, but a little less important, is in a women's game, slow down your out of bounds calls.
Okay.
All right. Well, which direction I tend to call something may not be a game changer. Women tend to, if the ball is theirs, they run and get it. Guys, sometimes if the ball goes out, both teams run to go get it if it's not obvious whose it is.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they just claim possession.
Mm-hmm.
I find that in the women's game, because if it's a 50-50, the right person generally goes and gets it. If I make too quick a call and I call it the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get 3 of them looking at me saying, are you calling me a liar?
Mm.
And they take it very personally, and I wouldn't say don't forget, because they know you make mistakes, but you lose a lot of credibility with a simple wrong direction out of bounds call.
Yeah. So what you're describing is what we call reading the room. So that can apply to any situation. When you think you see something, sometimes if you just take that extra couple seconds and look around and go, what does everyone else think about this? Usually they'll tell you, one way or the other about how you should react to this. 100%. Okay. I am gonna breeze through this one because sorry, my clock is not showing here, so I realize we're coming to our moving along quickly.
You're doing good. You're doing good. About
Okay.
20 minutes left, but take.
I have a few videos that I think would be good. I'll show maybe 1 or 2, but so style of play and positioning, the women's game tends to be more build up rather than like attack at speed. So finding pockets is really important. And actually, most people struggle with positioning more in the women's game than in the men's game because of how more tactical it is. In the men's game, you can just move. And more often than not, you're probably not in the way because the ball is still going, right? In the women's game, because of how they play, it's more important that we actually read ahead about what they're trying to do. ARs tend to have more difficult decisions in the women's game because of how the offside line is than in the men's game. Like I said, because they like to play quickly forward in the men's game. Women's game, they like to play more lateral balls. So those attackers running and defenders coming up, assistant referees actually have way more difficult offside decisions in the women's game. Not specific to either gender. Obviously proximity, right? It's super important for credibility purposes. If you call a PK from midfield, more than likely they're probably going to think that you didn't see it clearly versus calling it from 15 yards away, right? It lends to your credibility. So it's important for fitness, right, that we're close to play. And then reading the game, right? So again, that comes with time and experience and watching soccer. You can't understand the game if you don't watch, right? And watch what other referees do. Cool. Okay. So I have a few videos. I will show you like one or two. But what I want you to watch, don't worry about the foul. Like obviously look at that, but we're going to talk about the referee's reaction and then what they might say in this interaction with the player.
Morgan. Morgan shot it down into the ground. Tough challenge. And you're seeing this on both nines, and that is the center backs just stepping with them, bumping them, hitting them, pressuring them. Anytime one of those penetrating passes finds them to the feet. In this case, I think it was heavily on the backs.
Okay. What did we notice about the referee? What did we like? What didn't we like? What do you think the conversation was about? Is this the moment when we all just stare awkwardly at each other and go, I have no idea?
It was a very one-on-one conversation.
Okay, right. Like he took the time to face up. Good. Why is that important, like in this situation?
There's also a big name player that the foul was committed against.
Oh, very important person, VIP member. Yep. So knowing your personnel, right? Good. Anything else?
I think, and maybe because it's only in the 25th minute, center back, this is your freebie. I mean, to put it short and sweet, right? And that's a tactic one could have taken in that match. The other tactic would have been like, here's your yellow. But yeah, it's, that was my thinking, perhaps, that they're trying to manage it.
Yeah. So what do you think this conversation is that Kevin Broadley is having with Sam Coffey? What do you think he's saying to her? Or what would you say in this situation?
Well, if I'm not given the yellow, it's like, it's definitely, don't do that again. That's not okay today.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Right. So in this moment, knowing that Alex Morgan is a key player for San Diego, right? Also, too, I don't know how much you watch of NWSL or the national team when she was playing, but she takes a lot of hits, and she, the way she reacts to it is like they affect her greatly. So a tactic for the defense, like the opposition team, is to target her, right? Because she's a goal scorer. She's an important part of their team, a playmaker. So let's target her early. So knowing this or knowing these things, you can include that in your conversation with her, right? Hey, Sam, look, you know, it's early on in this game. That's a heavy challenge. Another referee might give yellow here. But for me today, I'm just calling a foul, but you need to know, like, take it easy, right? It's against Alex, take it easy.
It's almost like you're saying, read the room. This game doesn't need that type of foul.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Good. Let me see if I can drive this. Oh, nope. That's the same video.
Alive with their own teammate.
Clear the halfway line. Big collision there. Huerta's down with Smith. Teammates of the national team. Not so tonight.
Okay. Elvis. What did we notice about this one?
Alex, you mind if we see it one more time?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Also, the foul is weird, right? So don't worry too much about the actual foul. This is one of those ones I said before, like, there are weird things sometimes in the women's game where you're like, is that a foul? Is it not a foul? There's 2 dead bodies. I'm going to blow my whistle, right?
Alive with their own teammate.
Clear the halfway line. Big collision there. Huerta's down with Smith. Teammates of the national team. Not so tonight.
Okay, so this one, like I said, it's a weird, honestly, I feel like you could call it either way, right? It's one of those ones you're like, I don't know, but like I said, there's 2 dead bodies. I'm blowing my whistle. It's at midfield. I lose nothing, right? So knowing that context, talk to me about the referee and their interaction and maybe what they said to this player or players.
I thought it was interesting. He dispelled the tension very quickly, but that's also because the 2 players seemed to not get mad at each other. So he showed empathy, pointed the direction, and moved on. And
Yeah.
it sort of dissipated the whole thing. It's in a men's game, you will see more swarming. Whether it's a foul or not, or no matter which way you call it, you're going to get 3, 4, 5 players from both teams around you if you wait that long.
Depends on the league you're watching. So a lot of so one of our directives in pro is 100% caution every day of the week. Does that stop them from doing it? Sometimes, not all the time. In Europe, they do not allow that. Like, I'm sure if you ever watched the Euro or whatever else they just had recently, like, dissent was a huge focus point. So if you watched any of Copa America, just disregard everything I said, because that's like their thing. They swarm and, all that jazz. So it depends on the league. But yeah, as a general rule, women don't really tend to swarm like men do, for sure. So watch his body language.
Alive with their own teammate.
Clear the halfway line. Big collision there. Huerta's down with Smith. Teammates of the national team. Not so tonight.
So immediately, right? Is it Inga?
Yeah, it was it was Inga,
Yes,
yeah.
it is. Sorry,
Okay.
I was trying to unmute there. Yes.
That's all right. No
Inga.
worries. I know sometimes hard to press the button. Yeah, so immediately shows empathy, like you said, to the injured player, right? Checks to see if she needs a trainer, super important. Says, no, don't need the trainer. Okay. And then turns and says, like, oh, I don't know what you want here, and kind of smiles and they laugh it off, right? So as you mentioned, his body language and how he reacts to this kind of just everyone's like, oh, okay. Also, too, I don't know if you heard the commentator, these 2 players play on the national team together, right? So a lot of respect amongst themselves. Cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really cool clip. The 3 individuals involved in that clip, that's a lot of personality in one video. So,
right, I
and
know.
Elvis can always pull that off. That's a really good clip.
Oh yeah. Oh, Elvis. Okay, and I'll show you one. Do we have time for one last one?
Yep.
Well, you tell
Yep,
me,
keep
are
going.
you okay with that?
I mean, I'm okay. I have one
Okay.
last one. It's men's game. Finish with the men's game.
All right.
I just have to
Collide with their own teammate.
keep going. Is this one. And the video quality, it's not your eyes. It's the actual video quality. It's USL Championship. It's not very good. So just watch and tell me what you think. If I can find the play button.
On the backside here for the River Hounds. His first extended action in a month plus. Now play stops after the aggressive play by Mertz.
Yeah, it looks like Mertz just accidentally slips there and takes him out. Fortunate for him, nobody's too injured. Could have been bad, but slippery surface. Mertz goes.
Okay. There is a replay of this, but I didn't include it because the focus point is not so much on the foul. So what happens if you could you hear the commentators or no?
Yeah, we could kind of hear them. It sounded like somebody tripped over somebody else.
Yeah.
At
So
least that's what the commentators thought.
yeah, so it's true. So what happens is the white player is going to play the ball and slips on the ground. So I'll show it one more time. Maybe. Oh.
On the backside here for the River Hounds. His first extended action in a month plus. Now play stops after the aggressive play by Mertz.
Yeah, it looks like Mertz just accidentally slips there and takes him out. Fortunate for him, nobody's too injured. Could have been bad, but slippery surface. Mertz goes.
Okay. So it's a, like difficult challenge, but it's not made because of the player is trying to tackle the guy. Like he genuinely is making an attempt to play the ball and slips, and the opponent happens to be coming through at the same time. So what I want you to think about is some of the concepts we talked about regarding this clip. Now you can understand what the actual foul, like how it happened. So talk to me about my interaction with them and what you saw, and then maybe bring in some of the concepts we talked about, which Taylor actually mentioned in one of the clips already. Excellent work, Taylor.
So Alex, I think your proximity to where it occurred, you were right there on top of it.
Mhm.
So even as they may have been wanting to argue, there wasn't much to argue because you were there.
Perfect. Yeah, honestly, sometimes that is the best thing that you can do. And it's difficult for me because I'm tall. If I'm close, I often can't actually see. But in this situation, I saw it perfectly. And same, I've used that argument like, bro, I am right here. I am right here. You're going to tell me from 40 yards away you saw something better than I did? Yeah. So sometimes proximity is key, right? Okay. What else?
I'd say your body language was firm, but it was like a relaxed firm.
Yeah.
Like you didn't rise to where the players were at or where the players were trying to get you.
Right. Right. They were trying to sell me on something, the black team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Good. So in that situation, that was the reading the room, right? Of like, this is where it comes to understanding what people are trying to do. Now, in some instances, I actually had an MLS Next Pro game where a similar thing happened. The guy is going to play the ball, but an attacker is challenging. He slips, but he like whacks this guy. Like it is, you can hear it in the stands how hard he hits this player. And unfortunately, in that situation, it's 100% reckless. I cannot not give a yellow card, and it's in the second minute of the game. So this is when it comes to reading the room of like, there are certain things to consider in this one. Do I need yellow? No. And again, you can't see the foul closely, but there's contact, like significant contact. But everyone's good. And who actually helps the guy up who commits the foul? Right? The opposition player who was trying to sell me on, oh, that should be a yellow card, or like, oh, that should be more than just a foul. Right? So they try and bait you, remain calm, like trust your gut in what you see, interact with them, and then obviously everyone's cool because they understand what happened, right? Again, kind of a weird situation, but they happen in games all the time, right? Cool. And one thing I wanted to go back, I know we didn't watch Kevin Broadley's clip again, so apologies, because it's one of my favorite clips actually of how the referee owned that situation. So if you remember, Sam Coffey tries to run away and Kevin's like, no, we need to have a conversation, right? So especially in girls games, sometimes they'll do, no, I don't want to talk to you. And they run away. But in those moments when a conversation needs to happen, you as the referee have to take charge regardless of gender, right? So just remember, I love that clip for that reason, is that Kevin decided, hey, we need to have this conversation. Taylor mentioned face to face, right? And then Kevin decided when he was done, not the player. Kevin said, okay, we're good now. Yeah, okay, let's go. So super important to take away that. All right.
And from your notes, that conversation was sort of private, even though it was public that everyone could see he was talking to him, compared to, as you mentioned, the men's tends to be more public disciplinary comment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it might be more like, and if you saw his body language was very calm. Face to face, he didn't wave his arms around. He didn't point and, do these ones. It was very calm, right? Let's just have a conversation. Cool. All right. That concludes our session. Thank you all very much for your participation. Happy to answer any questions or comments. I thought everyone was supposed to bring hats, but so I have a fun hat. This is actually JJ's hat. But as you can see, it's very Florida.
Well, if you guys have any questions, now's the time. It's not often we get a FIFA, on a Zoom call. So, yeah, ask the burning questions you guys might have.
Hey, what are we supposed to sing happy birthday with that hat?
I mean, sure. What language do you sing it in?
Sorry, I'm those old men who's only going to do it in English.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'm sure we can take it in English, no worries.
Alex, when you have to have that conversation with the female participant, does it work to go up and say, hey, I have to have this conversation?
Yeah.
Or this isn't just from you and me. This is for everybody else.
Oh, 100%. If you explain, I am a very big believer in telling people what you want and why it's important. So for example, like, on corner kicks, this is probably the first one that came to mind. On corner kicks, when the ball's coming in and two players are, jostling for position and blah, blah, blah. I tell them, hey, if you hold this player, if I'm talking to the defender, if you hold this player and it impacts their ability to play the ball, I'm calling a PK. And it's going to be your fault. And then I say the opposite to the attacker. Hey, if you hold her or him, it's an easy foul coming out and you lose your attack. So you decide. These are the options. And then I leave it up to them, right? And at the end of the day, if you make a decision and you call it, hey, I told you, right? So absolutely, I think it's super beneficial to tell them, hey, we need to have this conversation. The words you use, I thought were actually perfect, right? For you and for everyone else. And then you can say whatever, you need to say. I thought exactly as you said, it was great.
If you guys ever get the chance to meet Alex, and talk to her about some of her phrases. I would say there is almost no better referee and since it's recorded, I can't say some of them, but her verbal judo is unlike any other.
Years of working in amateur leagues in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard, we need an R-rated call.
Yeah, adults only. Unrecorded, adults only.
Well,
Yeah.
I can officially call the meeting to an end and push the stop button and